Over the last week, we saw a fight erupt over Mayor Sherrell Parker's signature proposal, the Home Initiative, a $2 billion plan to create and preserve 30,000 units of housing. In a 16-1 vote last week, City Council amended the first phase of the mayor's plan. It lowered the income thresholds for Philly renters and homeowners who would benefit from this, making it a bit easier for lower income Philadelphians to apply to the city housing programs. But the mayor wasn't happy when council changed the plan. She wants to prioritize Philadelphians who she says are the working class, those with somewhat higher incomes. So I'm talking with council member Jamie Gauthier, who, as you'll hear, is on the front lines of this fight with the mayor. And then we get some analysis about what's really going on in City Hall from our political contributor, Lauren Vitas. Oh, and after the interview, Janessa White from Simply Eloped will be joining us for a conversation sponsored by Simply Eloped about the easy process of eloping on a budget. Stick around to learn more. It's Wednesday, December 17th. I'm Trinina Ree, and since it's Wednesday, we're talking politics. I want to talk about this whole home initiative. I saw you last week celebrating, walking down the hallways of City Hall. You were strutting your stuff just before council made its final vote before the winter break. Was last week a victory for you, Councilwoman?
Yes, it was a victory. And not just for me. It was a victory for all of the council members who understood that as historic as the $800 million home investment is, it's not going to matter if we don't spend it on the people who need our help the most. And it's a victory for the advocates who stepped up to work with us and really push for this. And it's a victory for the residents of Philadelphia.
So help me to understand this, though. What's so bad about Mayor Sherrell Parker's plan to help the working class or middle class families, those who've, they just cannot get the roof fixed because of how tight their budgets are? There may not be the lower income earners in Philadelphia. What's so bad about that?
I wouldn't call it bad. I think we just have a different theory of change that we're operating from. And my whole push this entire time was to make sure that the home dollars went to the folks who need it the most. And from a policy perspective, that's how we have to think about our housing programs and the assistance that we're putting out there. My push was to send those dollars to the people that, but for that city dollar, they're going to be on the streets. If they don't get that rental assistance, if they don't get help fixing that leaky roof, they're going to become homeless. And when they're homeless, the government's still going to have to support them, but then it's more costly and the outcomes are worse. So it was not about either side being bad. I think it's just a different theory of change about how we address the housing crisis. And, I also think there's a lot of confusion about the council proposal in that we raised the income limits for these programs in the way that Mayor Parker requested. So she got that part of what she wanted. But at the same time that we raised the income levels, we also prioritized in the legislation that the majority of funding has to go to poor and working class people. And those are the people that everyone's kind of been talking about. The sanitation workers, the teachers, the 311 operators, those folks are served in the council proposal and the majority of funding goes towards them.
I'm also curious, Councilmember, have you personally talked with Mayor Parker about this whole home initiative?
No, not one-on-one. Since in these past several months that council has been deliberating. The negotiating team was made up of, top officials from the Parker administration and the council president's top staff. So I was not directly included in the negotiations, even though I did a lot of advocacy and also, took the lead along with Councilmember Rulandau on crafting a number of amendments.
Got you. So I'm sure you heard, or maybe you haven't heard, but Mayor Parker, she was on an interview with WHYY, and she said this: pitting the have-nots against those who just have a little bit. She also said this quote, which was kind of interesting. I'm wondering if she's referencing you, possibly.
Now, it sounds easy for somebody to make a 30-second social media clip and say, I'm fighting to make sure we take care of poor people in the city of Philadelphia. I don't say that because I read a white paper.
Is she referring to you here?
You would have to ask the mayor that. If she is referring to me, then I would say that's pretty disrespectful of the years that I've spent in the area, working in the area of affordable housing. I am the only elected city planner in the city of Philadelphia. I worked at LISC for a number of years, investing in affordable housing projects all across the city of Philadelphia. This is what I've done for a very long time. I ran for office to be able to impact the area of affordable housing in an even greater way, and to make policies that preserve affordable housing, create affordable housing, and stop displacement. And that's what I've been doing since the day I set foot on council. So I don't know who that was intended for, but that does not match my profile or my work. So if it was meant for me, it's a very misguided statement.
So you both have many years of experience as public servants and fighting for, various issues for Philadelphians in the city. Given the back and forth, does this whole housing debate and who is going to get prioritized within this first round, does it indicate maybe some type of strain between the relationship with council as a group and the mayor?
I don't believe it does. I think it's more of an indication that City Council takes its role and its job very seriously. We are in office, and we are charged as office holders with being stewards of taxpayer money. Home is an $800 million investment in housing in the city of Philadelphia. And the first year allocation that we're talking about is $277 million. That's a huge amount of taxpayer funding. And if council did anything less than be thoughtful and deliberate about how this money is being spent and what will make the most impact, I would say that the public should be very upset with us. And so what we did was to put our thoughts into this first year spending plan in a way that strengthened it. And that should not be something that places a strain on our relationship with the administration. We are a separate chamber of government. We do not work for the Parker administration. And we should both be able to come to the table as partners to, govern and support the people of Philadelphia.
Okay, so Councilmember, what happens now? What's next?
We had a final vote on the amendment legislation, on the amended resolution. It passed out of council in a 16-1 vote with 16 yeses and 1 no. So that spending plan for the first year is now decided upon. And I'm very grateful to Council President Johnson for his leadership. I'm grateful to my colleagues, and I'm grateful to all of the advocates that helped us to end with a set of amendments that strengthen the home initiative and ensures that we're going to prioritize the people who need our help the most as it relates to housing. Mm-hmm. When we come back in January, there are some other pieces that we'll have to give a final vote to that deal more with sort of the bond issuance and making sure that everything's in place to actually get those bonds out of the door. But as it relates to this negotiation over the spending plan, it's done.
So What is like the timeline? So if, I'm a Philadelphian, I'm hearing, okay, the vote happened. Now they're moving towards the conversation of the bonds. But when do I get into some housing? When does my roof get fixed? What's the timeline that Philadelphians can anticipate on seeing some of this kind of in fruition?
I don't have sort of an exact timeline. I think with if we're talking about, the full implementation of home, um, there are more conversations to be had. And honestly, implementation is more the bucket of the Parker administration than council directly. But I will say that, sometime over the next year, I expect to see home progressing and stood up and running and serving the people of Philadelphia. However, we should also be clear that a lot of the programs that we are investing in are existing programs.
Right.
The majority of them are. And so the home repair programs, for instance, that were the subject of all of this debate, basic systems repair and adaptive modification, those are programs that people can apply to right now on the city websites, and they should do so. The rental assistance programs that we have, those are programs that already exist. And then there are some really innovative new programs like One Philly Mortgage that will help people to enter, into the mortgage market in a better way. Those newer programs, the Parker administration is still setting up and working on the implementation.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Councilmember.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And after the break, we'll talk to our political contributor, Lauren Vitas, about this debate over housing policy in our city. Filler Club is Philadelphia's best kept secret. It's the only place in the city where you can work out, and socialize all under one roof. Right in the heart of Philly, across from 30th Street Station, Filler Club is a private membership club built for modern city life. With multiple co-working spaces, more than 50 businesses on site, and a state-of-the-art fitness center featuring 2 full floors, personal training, an indoor pool, golf simulators, and even a cold plunge. You'll find everything you need to thrive. Visit fillerclub.com to learn more and apply to become a member. Discover why Filler Club is Philadelphia's best kept secret for work, wellness, and connection. Hey y'all, I don't know why it's so hard for me to find the perfect personal gift for the people closest to me. This year, though, I'm skipping those last-minute gift cards, and I'm sending them an Aura frame. I can preload photos before it ships. I can also personalize each gift with a special message before it arrives. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code CityCast at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code CityCast. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Lauren, what did you hear in that interview with Councilmember Gautier?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is just something that happens kind of with every mayor and every council, particularly those who are relatively early on in the relationship, which is, the push and pull of a strong mayor versus a strong council form of government. We saw this with the Kenney administration and city council under the leadership of Darrell Clark. We saw this under the Nutter administration. Frankly, I'm not surprised. The charter is set up in a way where we are a strong mayor form of government, meaning that the mayor is the chief executive of the city of Philadelphia. And over the years, council has worked to kind of carve out more authority for itself. And I think that leads to this just natural tension that we're seeing unfold between council as the legislative body and the mayor as executive.
You call it a natural tension. Is it a good tension, though? Do you think?
I think it depends on who you ask. I think the mayor would say, no, the charter says I'm a strong mayor. This is a strong mayor form of government. I think council would say, hey, we have an important role to play to provide checks and balances on the executive branch.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do think that, council does not see itself as a rubber stamp for the mayor. But the mayor, I think, feels that, and this is not unique to the current mayor, but the mayor feels that, as the chief executive of the city, that we should all be rowing in the same direction. And sometimes I know it can feel like council is rowing in a different direction than the mayor.
Lauren, what do you make about that back and forth? With the mayor, though, we told council member Gautier about Mayor Parker. She made a statement about people making a 30-second social media clip. She didn't name names, but then council member Gautier responded with a bit of a kind of a fire in her response, saying it was sort of disrespectful. Is that evidence of that tension, that natural tension that you just brought up?
I mean, probably. I think, to Councilwoman Gaudier's point, like, unless the mayor says who she was talking about, like, one can't just assume she was talking about Councilwoman Gaudier. But I think the thing that surprised me most about that interview was when Councilwoman Gaudier noted that, like, she hadn't actually, like, spoken directly to the mayor in months about this issue. And that was something that really did surprise me. I understand that, council has their sort of leadership that does negotiations, and the administration will have their leadership internally that will lead negotiations. But at some point, like, I think, it's important for folks to be able to pick up the phone and call each other directly rather than, be trading, was this about this person or that person? I remember I worked for the Nutter administration, and like his phone would constantly be blowing up with city council members calling, just wanting to kind of like chat through issues that they were having with either the mayor or his team. And it was not unusual for the mayor to have regular communication with each of the members, regardless of whether, they were in lockstep or not. So that was something I did find a little bit surprising, but stylistically, each to each their own. And if that is how folks want to operate, like that's their prerogative.
A lot of council members, elected officials, they are posting a lot on Instagram, making highlight reels about the work that they're doing. I've noticed that more in this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I have noticed. I've been doing what I do, working in or around city government for almost 20 years at this point. And when I first got to council, I don't even know if Instagram was like actually a thing. It maybe had just come online. And you really didn't see a lot of the same sort of focus as I think you do now. And I think that's the result of two dynamics shifting. Number one is that we have a much younger council, right? Like the idea of Joan Krajewski or Anna Verna posting like a reel to Instagram is just like, it just would never have happened, right? It just wasn't what they focused on. And then, so I think you have just like a younger council that is more in tune with social media and how to connect with voters. And two, I mean, I just think it's also just the nature of politics today, where everything is content, right? So, yeah, it's not surprising. I won't say whether I think it's good or bad. It is. So, yeah, it's definitely a trend I've noticed as well.
You said Kadrewski. I think you said names I'm not familiar with.
Oh, yeah. So Anna Verna was the former city council president before Darrell Clark. I think she came to office in the 1970s, and Joan Krajewski was an old stalwart from the Northeast that would just like absolute legend of like older elected officials.
Got it. Thank you for explaining that and breaking that down for me. Can you kind of explain the split here between what really is happening behind the scenes? It seems that council believes that the answer to the housing crisis in Philly and the skyrocketing cost of housing is to help the people who are struggling the most in the city. But the mayor, though, her answer to the housing crisis is to stabilize the middle class. So what are we seeing here in this split between ideas?
So I think it's a great question. And, the way I look at what's going on between council and the mayor right now is they both have like an end goal they're trying to reach, right? And they just think of there are different ways to get there faster. It's like if you and I were going down to the stadiums to watch the Birds play, you may say like, let's take the Broad Street line. And I might say, let's take an Uber. Like, we're still going to get there. We might get there right around the same time. They're just different preferred ways of getting there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what you're seeing. I don't think like there's a right or wrong way. This is sort of like a yes and like, yes, we need to stabilize the middle class, who makes up a significant portion of our tax base, right? We need to keep everybody is hurting right now. There's not many people who aren't hurting by the rising cost of housing or the cost of groceries or the just inflation in general. So I think it's it's two different ideas of the most effective way to get there. And I do think it's probably also reflective of the different lived experiences of the members of their districts. Former councilwoman before she became mayor, Sherelle Parker, represented the 9th Councilmanic District, which has a considerably higher percentage of folks who I think we would consider middle income and working class,
Mm-hmm.
where the district represented by Councilwoman Gautier is a much higher percent of people living in deep poverty. So I think, it's folks who are generally want to see everyone helped, but their priorities are just their how they think is they can do that the most effective way just happens to be two different policy ideas.
Is the home and housing policy going to dominate 2026 in council, you think? Or sort of like the way that maybe like the arena issue kind of dominated council's focus last year? How do you expect all of this to kind of play out?
As Councilwoman Gautier noted, the implementation is really going to be something that is left up to the responsibility of the chief executive, the mayor in this case. So what I think you'll see is council sort of they've allocated the resources, and now it's going to be monitoring how these resources are being deployed. We had the Rebuild Initiative, which was a Kenny administration initiative, and it took years for a lot of this money to get out the door and for shovels to get in ground. And I don't think council wants to see that delay because the city, frankly, just can't afford it with the rate that housing costs are rising. So I think you're going to see a lot of oversight wanting to understand who's applying for these programs, right? And that's the beautiful thing about having this continuous conversation and focusing on this. Because, you can check, it's like checking the cake in the middle of the bake to make sure it's baking properly, right? Have you allocated things the right way? Are these income levels you set doing what they're like? Are they reaching your goals? So I think you're gonna see a lot of sort of monitoring by council as well as the administration to make sure that these monies are being spent effectively and producing the outcomes they hope to see. I think, the other big elephant in the room that's quickly approaching is 2026, right? So you have, the city's going to have to do like a massive, like deep clean before our guests come over. So
Lauren, let me just say these analogies, like top tier. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I worked at the Franklin Institute teaching science to children. So I'm a big fan of trying to make things real world analogies.
Yes.
But I think Market East is going to be the other thing. I think it's not necessarily going to be a debate about the arena. The arena will pop back up with the South Philly development. I think that's kind of coming down the pike. But I do think Market East is going to be a big point of conversation because as is right now, Market East is not the giant welcome, we're open sign that we need it to be for the visitors we're anticipating in 2026. So I think you're going to see a lot of focus in the coming new year on, is the city ready from both a tourism perspective, from a public safety perspective, from a clean, green perspective. I think you'll see a lot more focus after the holidays on making sure that Philadelphia is able to put its best foot forward for the 250th celebration.
Another ongoing debate, we talked about it this year, you and I and Denise Clay Murray, President Trump and what his response is or would be to Philadelphia and his policies on immigration and how Mayor Parker responds or doesn't respond. Any other insight as to what could come in 2026?
It's interesting with Trump being president during 2026. You had I'm sort of like a student of history, particularly Philadelphia history. And for the 200th bicentennial celebration, it was Richard Nixon as president and Frank Rizzo as mayor. And they basically sent armed troops into Philadelphia to make sure the bicentennial celebration was a safe one. And it ended up driving many, many tourists away because they saw military instead of, guys dressed like revolutionary. They had real guns, not like the fake muskets. And it was a major turnoff for a lot of tourists.
Interesting.
So my hope is that we somehow manage to not repeat this particular history. I am sure that we will have President Trump here just because it is such a large celebration and there'll be a lot of cameras. So we know how that goes. But it is my hope that we will not repeat the mistakes of the past and create some sort of like militarized public safety image crisis again for the 250th. And I think the mayor has done a relatively good job at kind of laying low and not poking the bear on this one. So it remains to be seen. It's a very erratic administration from a federal standpoint. So it's hard to predict what they will or will not do.
All right, Lauren Vitas, thanks for chatting with me about politics this year and what we can expect next year. Well, kind of. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and go Birds.
Go Birds. Hey, listener, don't go anywhere. In just a second, we've got a segment sponsored by Simply Eloped. I'm chatting with the GM, Janessa White, about how eloping can be a simpler, more affordable way to get married without sacrificing the fun or the meaning. I'm Trenana Ree, here with Janessa White, the GM of Simply Eloped. Hey, Janessa.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So off the bat, what is Simply Eloped?
Yeah, so Simply Eloped is the largest elopement provider in the U.S. Essentially, you come to us, get your marriage license, and we do the rest. We're set up in 37 destinations around the U.S., and you choose your date, destination, package, and then we handle all of the coordination from there. So coordinating your venue, your vendors, advising you on marriage license, and just ensuring that the entire elopement day goes off without a hitch.
It seems really easy. Why should a couple choose to work with Simply Eloped?
I think first and foremost, like getting married can just be really expensive, especially when you're talking about a destination wedding where you're traveling to somewhere to have an elopement or a small wedding. I would say the first thing is like we're really affordable. Our average wedding is $2,500 instead of the industry average, which is about $35,000. So that's a big difference in cost. And I know that, given all of the economic times that we're in, that's a really important thing. People still want to get married, but they want to make sure that it's budget friendly. Next up, it can just be really challenging to coordinate something from a destination standpoint. You don't know who are the vendors you should be hiring. You don't, necessarily have local connections. So we just make the whole process, as you said, really simple, really easy. And then lastly, I'd say is like, a lot of people just don't want to have the full-time job of planning a wedding. And so we take all of that work off of couples' plates so that they can focus on what we think should be the priority, which is, really celebrating the love between two people, not learning how to become a one-time wedding planner.
Janessa, the company name is Simply Eloped. And when I think of eloped, I mean, that word has evolved somewhat over several generations, right?
I think that's such a great call out. It's not often you see a term evolve in your lifetime. So yes, I would say to like your grandparents, the term elope has a negative connotation, getting hitched, maybe, she's pregnant, they're running away from the parent. So it has kind of like this like secretive negative connotation. especially during COVID, it was the only thing you could do. And so we really saw like the term elopement evolve where it came to mean intimate, personalized, outdoors. And so I think it's a really important call out that the term means different things to different people, kind of based on the generation you live in.
Right. I love that. How does Simply Eloped work? If I'm a couple wanting to get married with you, can you talk me through the process?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first decision to make is like, do you want to elope or do you want to have a large wedding? I think that that's a question every couple should ask themselves. Like what feels unique and individual to us? What's the best way for us to celebrate our love? So once you make the decision to elope, we help you choose your destination. Do you want to get married in Hawaii, Las Vegas, the mountains of Colorado? So kind of choosing your vibe and the destination. And then based on that, we tell you the venues that we offer. And then you would choose your services, book your package, and then we're off to the planning racehorses.
What's your favorite thing personally for you? What's your favorite thing about Simply Eloped?
That's a really great question. I'd say for starters, and this isn't really intuitive when you look at like our website, we're actually like a very tech forward company, which allows us to be in a position where we can plan thousands of weddings. But I think that's part of what makes our company different from like other elopement planners is we offer couples so much support from a technical standpoint. You've got your own personalized dashboard. You can access your photos forever. That's a big differentiator. A lot of photographers, they keep it for a month and then delete them. So I think that's one of my favorite things. But also my team is so passionate about what we're doing. We really make sure every ceremony is personalized, individualized, and like true to what the couple is envisioning. And I think that that's really different from like a large wedding where you're kind of forced into what the venue rules are and the venue vision is. You have a lot of things you can and cannot do based on the venue. So I just think that there's like a lot more rigidity in, large wedding planning that is not the case with us. So I'd say like, my team passion in like creating personalized weddings is just, it's so delightful. We've had people elope with like cat in a backpack. We've had dogs that have acted as officiants in like states you can self-solemnize. I really love when people like go into the deep mountains and like have encounters with like elk or rainbows. So, you just never know like what magic is going to arise because you're not trapped in a box.
I love that. And it sounds so unique too. Janessa, thanks so much for being here. Again, check out simplyeloped.com to learn more. We'll have the link for you in our show notes as well, so you're just a click away. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode, please share this with a friend. Also, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. And don't forget, you can support our show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.